logic would say you should then begin the next sock for that pair. But I was like, no, girlfriend, I'm starting a new sock because I'm sick of that sock. I'm going to end up with like 5 pairs of just one sock. Hello, my pretties, and welcome back to another episode of the Peach&Paige Podcast. Today is the 15th of November 2019. This is the 6th episode of the Peach&Paige Podcast. It's been 3 weeks since I last filmed, and boy, am I glad to be back. My name is Jenna. I am the owner and designer of Peach&Paige. I am a knitting and crochet designer, and this is my little podcast for all things that is happening in my crafty world for crochet, knitting, and as of today, apparently sewing as well, which I will get into a bit later. For those of you that have watched before, thank you so much for coming back. It's lovely to have you back, and I've got so many things to show you that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks, so I really hope you enjoy today's episode. And for those of you that are joining me for the very first time, thank you for watching. Whether you've stumbled across me on YouTube or you've found me via my other social media avenues, thank you for coming. I really hope you enjoy the content in today's podcast, and by all means, if you do, please like and subscribe so that I know that people are actually watching this and I'm not completely wasting my time. So yes, 15th of November today. It's nearly Christmas. I cannot believe it. I'm here in Adelaide in South Australia. For a mid-November day. It is still very cold and overcast. We really haven't had much hot weather yet. So I live here with my husband and my 3 kids, 2 of whom are at school, and my youngest, who is currently having his nap, as he usually does, on a Friday afternoon when I film my podcast. What else do I need to go over? Oh, where you can find me. So you can find me on my website, which is peachandpaige.com, and obviously I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I've got an Etsy site as well. I'm trying to watch my glare. I've changed my lighting up a little bit today. I noticed my last podcast was a bit dull and gloomy. I don't know if it was the weather outside or what, but I've got a circle light in front of me today to try brighten things up a little bit and bring a bit of light to my face. But the downside to this is that I do wear glasses, and as you can see, when I tilt my head the right way, you can see the light reflecting in my glasses. I was going to try take them off, but I look a bit naked without my glasses on, so we'll just have to deal with it. I think that's about it for my intro. I've got so much I need to go through today. I've achieved a lot in the last 3 weeks, so I just want to get straight into it today and get started because I don't want this to go on for too long. So, finished objects first. So I've got a knitting item that I've finished, or half finished, that you've seen before. I've got a crochet item that I've finished, and also some sewing projects. So first of all, I think we'll start with my knit. So last podcast, I should say, I showed you guys a new sock that I was working on. This was the MABEL sock, I believe it was called. I will shoot the link up below as I usually do. It is a nice sock with a contrast toe and heel, toe up sock with some nice ribbing down the side. So I've finished one, which is why I say half finished object, because really I probably shouldn't call it a finished object until I've finished 2, but I've got 1. So this one is my size. So it's the first one I've made of this pattern. It's really quite simple. It's basically a straight stockinette stitched sock with a nice little 1x1 cable that twists every 10 rows. some new things with this one. I found this one quite easy to do. I mentioned last week as well a different toe that I hadn't done before. So this was a I think it was called a beanie toe for obvious reasons, as opposed to the wedge toe that just increases down either side on a sock. This one had evenly spaced increments going around, much like a beanie does, hence the name a beanie toe. And also the heel, it wasn't an afterthought heel, which I've done before, but I think last time I thought it was going to be a turn and gusset, heel flap turn and gusset, or what they call them, but it's actually just a German short row heel. So it's just got the German short rows that you work up either side. I have to say, trying this sock on, I'm not a huge fan of the German short row heel for my foot. If I was to wear this, I find it does pucker a little bit at the end of the foot, and then it just ends with a one-on-one ribbing and a bit of a different cast off. I can't remember what it was called. I had to look it up on YouTube as to how to do it, but it's actually quite a nice little stretchy cast off. A lot easier than like an Italian cast off or something like that, which I've done in the past. I'll see if it'll focus. And it actually creates kind of quite a cool little sort of zigzaggy edge to the top. Obviously I haven't weaved my ends in, so just disregard that. But yeah, sort of this nice little zigzaggy edge to it, which is quite cute. I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it was really easy. It was just sort of a, you know, slip two, or knit two and slip the first over the top, but it was a bit more complex than that. There was another step to it. I can't remember. But yeah, it was good. So yeah, MABEL sock pattern. I'll put the link below. Nice little sock for if you just want something just a little bit different, but not too crazy with cables. So that's my first finished object. On that yarn, I showed you last week. It's not a hand dyed. It was an nylon, a 75 wool, 25% nylon blend. I'll put the name below as well. So yeah, that's my first of my Christmas socks. So I've got 7 more socks to do. I've done 1. I don't know. I'll talk about it at the end, but I think I'm screwed this Christmas, quite frankly. I've overcommitted, shall we say. So that's number 1. So number 2 is a sewing project. Now, if you followed me on Instagram and Facebook, you would have seen these before. And also, if you've watched my podcast before, you would know that I do not enjoy sewing. I can sew. I do not like to sew. I do not find it soothing or therapeutic. But I did find this project really quite simple. I should have noted down what the name of the pattern was. I'll put the link below as well. So this was a pattern that I downloaded online for a bag pattern. Really simple. So this was the first one that I made. And I've got my pin on there as well. So it's a nice little flat bottom bag with your 2 pockets and a drawstring around the top. So this the pattern came in 2 sizes. So this was the smaller size of the 2. I didn't realize it was going to be quite so small until I made it up, but it's a good sock bag. So I keep my, like, a cake. It'll fit a nice a wound up cake of hand dyed. And a sock that you're working on will fit in there quite nicely. So that's what I have got in this one at the moment. And obviously I've just picked up fabric from Spotlight. It's fully lined and it's reversible too. So you can flip it the other way out, and it just means that the pockets will be on the inside. So I whipped this one up really quickly. And I think the other thing I liked about this one is that you didn't have to bother with overlocking or anything like that. All your seams are all hidden and tucked in, and because it's not clothing, it's not going to be going through the wash heaps and things like that. I think I'm not too worried about the fact that it hasn't been overlocked. It's all just you know, sewn, which made the process a lot nicer and quicker for me as well. So yeah, I actually didn't mind making these, and they only take an hour or so to whip up. And it's all just rectangles pieces as well. So really easy to make and measure, and easy to redo in sizing of your choice as well. And it's got some interfacing in there as well, just to sort of strengthen it and make it so it sits up all nice and like a little bag. Yeah. So that was the first one. So once I made that, I decided I needed to make another one. So I did. Like I said, this pattern came in 2 sizes. So I made one in the next size up. Voila. Which is really cute. So exactly the same. So you still got your 2 pockets, completely reversible. If you wanted to, your pockets would just be on the inside. And I just picked up this fabric from Spotlight. It's just pure cotton fabric. I don't know what you call it. It's just cotton. And yeah, so that's the second one I made. And with this one, I actually, if any of you are sewers, because the pockets are lined, I just rolled the lining up a little bit when I did my top stitching. So it sort of looks like the pockets are piped, which they are not. It's just the way that it's sewn. But that gives it sort of this nice white edge along the top, which just makes it a little bit more professional. So, no, I will not be making these to sell. I am a pattern designer and I don't enjoy doing them. That being said, I now have a bunch of orders for friends and family who want them as gifts for Christmas. So I will discuss that more in acquisitions, because I went fabric shopping today because Spotlight has 40% off all fabric. So I went on a little spree and stocked up on heaps of nice pretty fabrics for everyone. So yeah, that is mine. And that one's a nice size for, what did I have in that? Like my cardigan that I'll show you, that I've shown you in previous episodes, the knit top t-shirt that I'm working on, fits in there nicely. So I want to make one size bigger again, which isn't in the written pattern, but like I said, because this pattern is just rectangles, it's really easy to size up. So I'm going to make one in a slightly larger size for bigger projects that I'm working on, and I should be able to show you that next episode of my podcast and let you know how that went. So yeah, anyone interested in sewing, great little pattern for sewing bags. Oh, and obviously they're great for holding your pins and keeping your pins on. So I have another one of my pinpoint pins there as well. I've got some other pins which I'll be showing you a bit later too. And lastly, for finished objects is a cowl. So I'll be honest, I've had to put myself on a pattern designing ban, self-imposed, because with Christmas coming up, I'm a shocker for seeing something or thinking up something and deciding that I'm just going to randomly start working on that. So even though I have probably at least half a dozen to a dozen half-finished patterns that I keep saying I'm gonna finish, I'm gonna write them up, I'm gonna do all the pictures and things, and then I'm going ahead and designing new stuff. So the only way I'm going to actually get anywhere is to stop myself allowing to work on anything new. It either needs to be Christmas presents or pre-existing designs. So with that being said, this is the last design that I'm allowed to do until I release a few. And I've got it on a model because it's the only way you can really see how it sits properly. So this is a nice little crochet tie-up cowl. Obviously this is a infant size because for a sample I didn't want to waste heaps of yarn or heaps of time working on something until I knew how it was going to sit. So the first one I made was itty bitty. That being said, I actually don't mind it in a small size, and when I do release it, I'll probably release it in this size as well, especially for those that want to do sort of mummy and me type patterns. So to give you a better look, so that stitch is now I can't remember what it's bloody called. It's a single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, and then reverse on the next row. Is it lemon peel stitch? I want to say lemon peel stitch. I think it's called a few other things as well, the granite stitch or something, but it's really nice. It's a nice dense stitch without being overly thick, but it makes it's a bit more interesting than just a straight HDC or something like that. So excuse me. The wool I used in this one, which I've mentioned before, this is actually a hand-dyed, the multicolour, which I think I grabbed the cake for as well. Oh, go down there, Mr. Mannequin. So that's it in a cake. So this one was called Kindergarten Treasures by Cola Girl Collective here in Australia. So it's just a nice white base with a whole splattering of bright colours, basically. Sort of reminds me of melted crowns. You know those melted crown paintings that you see all over Pinterest where they like tape crowns and then use a hairdryer and melt them? And it sort of reminds me of that a bit. It's nice. And that's a DK weight pure merino. So that was the, and that's obviously what it looks like crocheted up. So you don't see a lot of crochet projects where they've used hand-dyed yarn. I don't know why. I think if you got the right hand-dyed, it can work up really nicely. It won't work for all hand-dyeds, but this one, especially your real sort of speckly ones, it looks really nice. And I quite like the effect of it, even though it is crochet. And the pink is just Stylecraft acrylic. I'm not even sure what the colour is, to be honest. But it's just a nice hot pinky fuchsia colour. So with this one, it has a tie, so it splits over the shoulder, like so. So it's got a tie on the shoulder, which I've also done in the hand-dyed, making pom-poms. I have to say, I know I said this on Instagram as well, making pom-poms with expensive hand-dyed yarn feels like such a sin. Cutting it up and sort of wasting it almost felt so wrong, but how amazing are those pom-poms with all those coloured speckles in it? So worth it. So cute. So I'm absolutely stoked with how those turned out. So yeah, I'm quite happy with this pattern. So it's a finished object. Obviously just a sample. I used a 4mm hook for this. I'm probably going to write it up in a 4.5 just to make it a little bit flowier. But no, and work up quicker. But yeah, I was really, really happy with that. So that's my third finished object. Sit down there. Stay. Which leads me to my first whip. So I started doing the adult size in that one. Allow me to wet my whistle for a minute. I put up a story on my Instagram last week, I think it was, needing help with some colour choices for a colour block cowl that I was working on. And it's the adult size of that. So you guys all voted for black and grey as my colour choice. And so that's what I'm doing. So I've only just started it. I really do. How nice is this stitch? I don't work in black a lot. Oh, look at all the hair on it. That's disgusting. I'm molt. Plus I have 2 cats, which doesn't help. But yes, so that's, oh my God, look at all that cat hair. That is horrendous. That's it so far. So it looks really long, but the top part of it sort of, it folds down and squidges up a bit. So I think that will be a good size when it's done. one downside to this scarf is that the striped sections have lots of tails. So I did, I mean, you could easily, because the colour changes are all at one end and it's only every 2 rows, you could carry your yarn, but it means that you'd be able to see like a strip of black at the end of the grey row sort of thing and a strip of grey at the end of the black row. So it just wouldn't look quite as neatly finished. But if you were completely anti tying in ends, you could easily carry your yarn across with you and it wouldn't be the end of the world. So yeah, that's the next one that my first whip to show you. Oh, and this yarn this is Bendigo Woolen Mills in their luxury 8-ply 100% wool, which I like. It is a thicker DK, so like compared to the Stylecraft acrylic, it is quite thick and dense. And this, like I said, I used a 4.5 on this, so it is a little bit, it works up quicker. And the fabric's a little bit less dense. You can sort of, if you stretch it out, you can see through it and what have you. So yeah. Oh, my nose is running like a tap today. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be sniffing. That's horrible. That's my first whip. 20 minutes. We're smashing through it. We're getting there. I'm going to pause for a moment because I am parched and I forgot to refill my drink. And I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so next whip is one that you have seen before, but I'm just going to show you the process, or progress, I should say, that I've made on this one. And that is my T-shirt Romantique, which I've probably shown in at least 3, maybe 4 podcasts now, actually. This is my ongoing project. I haven't worked on this one a whole bunch in the last 3 weeks. My God, it's getting so big. I need to like scooch right back there. Okay, so that's where I am up to. It's starting to look like a t-shirt, guys. So I put a progress creeper in actually. I'm quite glad I did. So that little donut, that's where I was at 3 weeks ago. I've actually done more than I thought I had. That's not too bad. This is a fair, decent effort. Basically all I'm doing now is just working down the body, which it does have, squinch back up, the top does have decreases, which you can see either side of that donut, which tightens it through down to the waist. And then it stops, and then I'm just a few rows into starting to do some increases. So it sort of goes into the middle of your back and then we'll start going out again, which is where I'm at. So I'm about halfway down the back. So it's actually going to be quite long. This was the medium size. Oh, no, it's probably going to be about right. Once I get over my chest. So yeah, that's the center of my waist, which is where those decreases stopped and the increases started again. So yeah, that's smack bang in the right spot. I mean, obviously it's going to change when it blocks a little bit, but it's cute. I'm really excited about this one and how it's going to look. So that's the back. So it's got a V back on it. And then it's straight across the front like so. So yeah, really happy. So I don't know, maybe next podcast I'll actually have this finished and I'll be able to wear it, which is exciting. And I'll put the link to this pattern below. Super easy. I've never done anything like this before. I'm not an overly experienced knitter. I work it out as I go along. Sort of a lot of new techniques, especially around the top. So some German short rows in the shoulders, which I hadn't done before this. Some different sort of bindings that I hadn't done, like a 3-needle bind off and things like that, which I'd never done before. But the decreases and increases are all fairly standard. It's just your slip knit or knit 2 together sort of thing, or make one right, make one left for increases. So all fairly standard stuff. But yeah, a really good project for someone that hasn't done a lot of garment work, for construction techniques and things like that. As a beginner project, this is great. Not a beginner knitter, but a beginner for this sort of stuff, for sure. Yeah, so that's my progress on that one. And lastly, the other whip that I've got, which I hadn't started last podcast, is another sock. Because you know how I finished that sock, because logic would say you should then begin the next sock for that pair. But I was like, no, girlfriend, I'm starting a new sock because I'm sick of that sock. I'm going to end up with like 5 pairs of just one sock. They're not really pairs, 5 individual socks. And then I'm going to have to go back and do all the other ones. So everyone's probably going to end up with one sock given to them for Christmas. But, you know, logic does not prevail with me. So, moving on. This is my next sock. You would have seen in my Instagram stories when I introduced this yarn, which I'll show you in a minute. And because it was a beautiful hand-dyed yarn, I decided that I was just going to do a straight vanilla sock for this one, which basically means just a straight stockinette stitch sock. So no fancy lace work or cables or anything like that. Ribbing, nothing. It's just a straight plain vanilla sock. It will be a contrast toe, heel and cuff. So obviously my contrast colour is this nice motley grey. Oh, excuse my nails, I've lost one. A nice motley grey, and then this beautiful hand-dyed pink, purple, grey galaxy type yarn. Yeah, this one is a rather large sock. I've got a tiny size 6 foot, and this one's being gifted. So this sock is significantly larger than what I would normally do, but it's super cute. And it fits on me almost like quite a giant sock. It just doesn't stretch out. I could probably wear it if I had to. One thing I've learnt knitting socks and following patterns is I must be quite a tight knitter. I knew I was a tight crocheter. I didn't realise I was also a tight knitter, because I've got a size 6 foot, as I said, which is small, and like even a 64 stitch foot, which is a pretty medium sized sock for those that knit socks. 64 stitch on a 2.25mm needle is quite tight on me. I certainly couldn't get away with like a 60 stitch, and this one here is 80 stitch, which is huge. But the sock itself actually is not turning out that big, so I feel like I'm not tight, like they're not tight on the needles. I find I'm quite relaxed when I knit, but for some reason everything I make seems to just work up small. But yeah, so that's my progress on these ones. So I'm going to, like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the German short row heel, and also with this one I did a normal wedge toe heel as opposed to the beanie toe, as I was explaining before. So I'm thinking with this one I'm probably just going to go back to doing an afterthought heel, which basically means that you work up until you get to where your heel would go, put in some waste yarn just to mark, to hold the stitches in and keep the place, and then continue on for the rest of the sock. And then once you've finished, you go back in, pick those stitches up where you've put your waste yarn in and work your sock. And the heel is pretty much exactly the same as a wedge toe, in that it's just flat with increases each side, but you're decreasing instead of increasing for the heel bit. So yeah, that is my next whip, and this is a nice little one. This is the one that I've got in my that I keep in my Galaxy bag at the moment, because it fits in there quite nicely. I think the one thing I really like about the socks, knitting socks, is they're just an easy pick up and take anywhere project, and especially now that we're hopefully going to start getting some warmer weather soon. They're one that you can work out without feeling like hot and heavy. It's not like having a blanket on you. They're nice just to be able to carry around and pick up, or if you've got appointments and things like that, they're really easy just to take around with you. And especially a vanilla sock where you're literally just knitting around and around. So they're a mindless knit as well. So good if you're watching movies or watching TV or what have you. You don't have to think about it. You're not counting. You just knit. So yes, that's that. I think that's about it for my whips. So as you can see, I've been working on quite a few new little bits and pieces over the last 3 weeks. I'm quite happy with my progress. Acquisitions. So got a few new things as well in the last 3 weeks. So I'll start with this one. So I mentioned last podcast that I was making this beauty lovely little bonnet in a hand-dyed yarn by the Australian wool store called Charlotte's Rose, but I lost at Yarn Chicken and ran short, and I was about, what was that? I reckon I was about here. So I'd done one tail, I'd done all my single crochet all around the edge and got to about here and stopped. So all I needed to do was finish the tail and make a second pom-pom, but I ran out of yarn. I thought that's okay because I adore this yarn. I've made some Delilah gloves in this yarn, which I'll put a picture up there so you can see what the colorway looks like in a knit, because obviously this is crocheted. Again, crocheting with hand-dyed yarn, big fan. I love it. I wish we saw more of it because it really is, it's beautiful. So I thought, well, I'm going to use this yarn again because I really like it. So I jumped on their website and bought myself another skein. It's DK weight, and I got my skein. Now, this the original skein that I had was gifted to me by my best friend. It'd have to be probably about 12 months ago now, right? And I don't know how long she had it for, or where she got it from. So I don't know how long ago that was originally dyed up. Now, naively, and this isn't the dyer's fault by any stretch of the imagination, this is mine, naively I just assumed that they wouldn't have changed their recipe for that particular colorway, which, like I said, very naive, especially when it's possibly been a year since they may have different dyes, everything. So I got my skein, and while it's lovely, it is definitely in no way a match to the original Charlotte's Rose colorway that I got. So that's the skein that I got, and it's a bit scraggly because obviously I haven't bothered caking it up yet, which I should. I just undid it enough that I could finish my bonnet, and then poorly attempted to reskein it because I'm clearly not a dyer and have no freaking idea what I'm doing, considering I actually think I did a good job getting it back into a somewhat skeiny type shape. But yes, it's clearly significantly different. A lot more of a peachy pink, whereas this had these really nice splashes of like a magenta-y sort of color. You can probably see it better up close. It's it doesn't even look as bad on the camera, but in real life it really is. Whilst both beautiful, it's a completely different colorway. So you can't tell on the bonnet, which I was really grateful for because I would have been devastated if I couldn't finish this bloody bonnet. But starting from there, the colorway does change slightly, but enough that I don't think you would notice it unless someone like me stupidly pointed it out. And because I hadn't done the pom-poms yet, so both pom-poms are with the new colorway as well. So I think I've managed to get away with it. I mean, it's a sample anyway, but yeah. So that was a lesson learnt. I really shouldn't have just assumed that the colorway would be the same, but I'll still use the yarn I mean, I have to admit I prefer the original colorway with those real sort of a lot more of just white with these splashes of this real sort of magenta-y color through it, as opposed to this one, which really doesn't have much white in it at all. It's all just shades of a real peachy pink, and then it's got a lot more brown and yellow through it, whereas this really didn't have any yellow at all. Had a few specks of green, but it didn't have the yellow. So anyway, so that was one of my acquisitions. So it'll be nice to see. I will still cake it up and I will still use it. But yeah, next time, if I really like a colorway, I will learn to try get two, or just assume, or just acknowledge the fact that if I only get one, chances are I will never get that colorway again. Unless it's a dyer that's really good at keeping their colorways the same and not changing their recipes. So yeah, acquisition one. What else have I scored? I've got some other goodies. Oh, my pins. So I've got a few new pins. So I've got this one, which is a nice little peach, which says just peachy, which I got because, well, Peach and Paige. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Peach and Paige, I wanted a peach pin. I also got another pin which has dropped down on the floor, so excuse me. All right. I also got another little pin, which is this one here. So it's just some nice little cherries for a project that I'm working on more than anything. I did get two, so one to give away and one for myself. So these weren't pinpoint pins. So a lot of the pins I've got in the past are pinpoint pins. These were just eBay pins. So they were cheap, but they're mass produced. They're nothing special, but they're still quite cute. So I was quite happy with those. So I picked them up off the eBay. And from Etsy, I got some new stitch markers. So I need some new stitch markers. And these are the ones I got from Mo and Me. Focus, Daniel. So they're just nice little glittery stitch markers in silver and pink. And they're actually progress keepers. So they've got the little lobster clasp, I think they're called, on them. She sells them in both the progress keepers, which are the lobster claws, or stitch markers. So stitch markers are a bit different in that they're just a loop and quite a bit bigger, whereas the lobster claws are progress keepers because they're designed to stay in your work as you go along, like I did on here. So it's to keep progress of where you're at. And so you need a lobster claw so you can take it out afterwards. Whereas your stitch markers will always just slide along on your needle. So they can be a solid loop. That being said, the projects that I've been doing lately where I've needed stitch markers, so this and socks, my needle size is about the same size as the lobster claw anyway. So I grabbed the lobster claws because I can use them in most cases as both stitch markers and progress keepers, which is what I've done here. So you can see I've got them on my cable. So that's one of the pink ones. And turn around. There's another pink one there. It's not going to turn. Loop, loop. So there's another pink one there. So they're quite cute. I had my sheep on there before, but these were blingy and pink, and so I couldn't say no, really. And in case you're wondering, while we're talking about stitch markers, you will sometimes see these type of stitch markers as well. So these are they're like progress keepers in that you can take them off. They're sort of like a safety pin, I suppose. What's good about these is that they're really lightweight. So as opposed to your fancy ones that have got, you know, your little charms and things on them, these can hang and drag. And you may find that, especially if you're working with a delicate fabric, that when you take it out, you can see where it was because the stitch is stretched. Whereas these are really good for when you're counting and you just need to mark, you know, every 10 row, or in this case, I'm marking my increases. So I can keep count of when I need to do an increase and how many I've done. They're nice, lightweight little ones. You'll see them quite often when people are doing sock projects. They're counting cables or counting rows for a lace design or something like that. So that's why you'll sometimes see those on my project as well. They're more for counting. It's probably the best way to describe it. They're counting markers. So yes, so they're my my new stitch markers. And this person was actually located here in South Australia as well. So I don't know if she does any stalls or anything like that. I haven't sort of seen her about the place. I just came across her on Etsy, and it wasn't until I went to the checkout, I was just like, wait a minute, you live driving distance from me, which in Australia doesn't happen very often. Knowing me. And they were well priced too, really cheap. So I don't know if they're handmade or if the charms, I think the charms are probably bulk made, and then she turns them into the progress keepers, which helps keep the costs down. I don't care, they're beautiful. And lastly, because now this is a sewing podcast too, I mentioned that Spotlight had 40% off fabric, and because I knew that everyone was going to want bags for Christmas, and I also still wanted to make a few bags for myself, I thought I would whip down to Spotlight and stock up on some fabric. So I thought while I'm here, I might show you some of the fabric that I got today for new bags. So I got some leopard print, which just screams me. I am very much a leopard print fiend. So I couldn't resist getting a leopard print for a leopard print bag. And I'll probably put my, I'm gonna go, there it goes. And I'll probably have my little cherry stitch marker on there. So I'm going to make a, I'm probably going to use that for my big bag, the next size up that I'm going to do the maths on and make. And I got a fair bit of that fabric, like there's 1.5 meters, I think there, and the bags don't use much. So I'll probably get a few bags out of that as well. So that was really nice. I also got, because I got some plain colours as well, but I also got a Harry Potter fabric, which you've probably seen about the place, because this is a Spotlight. This is all licensed fabric. So again, like I said, I'm not selling these are just for gifts. So it's a-okay. So that's very cute. So that'll make a nice little bag. And I also got, inspired by this, I love this fabric. It's stunning. And so my daughters also liked that fabric and were very keen for me to get some more galaxy type fabrics. So the next one I got is this one. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually glittery. It's got glitter through it, whereas the other one doesn't. So that's really pretty. So that's going to look really nice on a bag too. And then another glittery one. Beautiful. So that's stunning. And it's got the glitter through it as well. So I'll make a bag out of that. I got some more of my skull fabrics. That's the, that away. That's the same fabric I used for my bag, but I ran out and I knew I wanted more, so I grabbed some of that. I got some cherry fabric. And once again, you probably can't tell, but they're little, it's got little glittery bits on it as well. It's hard to see. It just looks like white, but yeah, that's glitter on there. I got some plain colours as well, so like just like blue and purple and stuff. And then the last pattern fabric I got, which I also love, is this nice bluey mermaidy one. which is nice. It's a bit thinner. That's a poplin. But in the bag, it's only going to be a pocket or something. So it is a bit thinner than the other fabrics, but it'll work. It'll work fine. I hope. We'll soon find out. Oh, the other thing I was going to make with these as well. I've been seeing lately people sewing little microwave bowl cozies, so that when you get your hot food out of the microwave, you put your little bowl in this little cozy. Here in my house, we just use a tea towel. So I figured with some of this fabric, I would get some pure cotton wadding, because obviously you can't use polyester or it would melt. Some cotton wadding and make some little microwave bowls for us to have around the house for when we reheat food, which we do quite often, because who can be asked cooking every night when you're a family of 5? Not me. What are we doing? 40 minutes. All right, cool. So that's about it for what I've got to show you as far as finished items go and whips go and acquisitions go. What else do I want to talk about? So plans as far as Peach and Paige goes. So obviously we are coming into the lead up for Christmas. As I announced last podcast, or just before, that I won't be releasing any more patterns until the new year, for obvious reasons, because I have a crap load of Christmas stuff to make. And it takes every ounce of strength in my being just not to sit down and design new stuff anyway. So next, I think I will hopefully get another 1 or 2 podcasts in, because what are we now? 15th of November. So now that I'm back on the right weekend, because obviously I've done 3-week gaps in my last 2 podcasts. So I want to go back into a 2-weekly podcast schedule. So another 2 weeks will take us to the end of November, and then 1 more in early to mid-December. And then I will probably go quiet until mid-January. So I might do sort of a 4-week break between podcasts for obvious reasons, because it's just the silly season and kids are on school holidays and I've got some holidays and you just got that much on, and I'm probably not going to get a whole bunch of stuff done over the Christmas/New Year period anyway, with all the family events and things like that you need to go to. So yeah, what I've got to get done before Christmas is I got 4 pairs of socks to do. I've done 1.5 socks, so not even a single pair yet. I need to make 4 bags as gifts, possibly a bag for myself. And I need to work out what I'm going to make for my work colleagues as well, because I want to make them something this year. So I want something nice and quick and easy to make as little gifts for my work colleagues. And obviously I want it to be something that's knitting or crochet related, because that's me and that's personal, and I think they will appreciate that. So I haven't quite worked out what I'm going to do there. I have some ideas, but I don't want to say anything, just in case some of my colleagues are secretly into crafts and actually watch this podcast. Not that I think any of them do. But yes, so that's my plans for the next couple of weeks. In the new year, I want to come back into pattern writing with a vengeance. I've got so many things on the go, like my bonnets, my leg warmers, my new cowl, that crochet short sleeve, the kimono thing, which I haven't even touched in the last 3 weeks, that I really badly want to revisit. So heaps of patterns lined up for next year, which I'm really excited about. This time of the year is really frantic as far as my pattern sales go. Luckily, because I've written and published all my patterns, there's not really too much work behind it, but I'm selling quite a few patterns on a daily basis at the moment, mainly because a lot of my market is in the US for pattern sales, and obviously for Christmas gifts and coming into winter, it's very popular in the US, well, just in the Northern Hemisphere in general, I guess I should say, to give handmade socks and beanies and things like that as Christmas gifts. So I always find this year is really good for sales. And then obviously next year I'll be able to continue building my pattern sale base and continue to grow. I'm quite, regularly having new record days as far as pattern sales go, which is great because it means that my business is growing, which is all you really need or want out of any sort of small business, I suppose, is to see that there is some sort of trajectory in the right direction and you're not just stagnant, which is lovely. So that's about it for all knitting and crochet related stuff. So if you couldn't give a damn about my personal life, feel free to tune out now. I would not blame you because this is the end of all things Jeny related. If you are leaving though, please do like and subscribe so that you know or get a reminder on your phone when or at least pop up in your feed when I put a new podcast up. I am thinking of doing some non-blog related videos on YouTube. Some videos showing how I take photos, my product photos and things like that, how I go about that and my setup and things like that. So I'm thinking of doing some other little tutorial type videos. So by subscribing, you'll also be notified when any of that sort of stuff happens. I may even do some videos for some really basic patterns that I'm not going to charge for, because obviously I charge for my patterns. So patterns that I'm happy that should just give away for free, I will probably be putting up as YouTube tutorials and video tutorials as well. So some new things that are going on. So if you are staying, personal stuff. So as I mention on the regular in my podcast, my nails horrendously grown out. They are due to be done tomorrow. So unfortunately, I'm now back in a schedule where every second podcast my nails look rank because they are due to be done because I get them done once a month. So they are horrendously grown out and I need to get them done tomorrow. So that's on my to-do list. Also tomorrow is getting my hair cut and coloured, which I haven't done in a few months now, since after my second podcast when it was bright purple. It will probably be not much different. It will just be my roots getting done. I do quite like the baby pink and intend on keeping the baby pink. And I'm also probably going to be growing my hair out because I do like it longer and my husband prefers my hair long. So I'm in the process of growing that out. So I'm not entirely sure what to do with my bangs because I have a rather ginormous forehead, which I've become more and more aware of watching myself on podcasts. So do I get bangs? I don't know. Are bangs still in? Would I look ridiculous with bangs? You could do like those curtain bangs. I don't know. I can't work it out. I don't want to cut my bangs and then regret it, but I want to do something about my forehead because it's huge. And having it over to the side is just, I don't know, it sort of just like illuminates this giant bare mass on top of my head. So, I don't know, I'll talk to my hairdresser. But I could quite possibly have a nice banging hairstyle next podcast. So that's happening tomorrow as well. Busy. It was me and my husband's 4-year wedding anniversary yesterday, which was lovely. Cannot believe it's been 4 years. I shall probably put a little picture up here of us back on our wedding day 4 years ago. So we went out we didn't do anything yesterday because obviously today's Friday, so yesterday was Thursday, and both working as much as we do with 3 kids, going out and doing things on a Thursday just, really isn't overly practical. That being said, we did book tickets to go see Dylan Moran, the British comedian. You may know him if you've watched Black Books. He's probably the most popular one that he's was on. It's a British comedy. So we went and saw his stand-up on Tuesday night, which we'd booked 6 months ago without realizing it was on a Tuesday. But thankfully, my amazing friend came and babysat the kids, which we never do. My son can be a bit of a handful, and I always feel guilty getting them babysat, so we don't get them babysat ever. So that was a big move and a big step, but he actually coped really well. So that's probably going to become something we do a little bit more often, which will be nice, knowing that he can be babysat and will actually behave and go to bed and do what he needs to do. So that was Tuesday night. And then tomorrow my husband has booked for us to go out for lunch at a nice winery here in Harndorf for a 4-course degustation something. I don't know. He's a foodie. I'm not really a big foodie, but I'm sure it'll be lovely and delicious, and it's at a winery, so they'll have wine, and that's really the most important thing. So tomorrow will be nails, quickly go out for lunch, then I got a hair appointment at 3:15, so it's gonna be flat out, but nothing planned for Sunday, so that's when I'll probably do my editing and things like that. Next weekend is then my work Christmas party on the Friday. We have Etsy Made Local on the Saturday, which is a Etsy-based annual stall market, I suppose, where you can only be a vendor at this market if you have an Etsy shop. So they always run it this time of the year. I actually was a vendor in it a few years ago when I was doing made to order. Didn't have a massive amount of success. Reason being is that I was selling winter items coming into summer, which unfortunately, just with the way timing is here in Australia, where obviously Christmas is during the summer, it's just not ideal. I did get a lot of I made my money's worth. I made a good few $100s, but it wasn't overly successful. But yeah, so I'll be going there as a member of the public and just checking things out and seeing what everyone has made to offer. It's quite a big market and event. It's all lovely Etsy handmade stuff, and it's just about the handmaking and the creative community as well. So that's on the day after my work Christmas party, so that will be interesting if I know me. But we'll see how we go. We soldier on. And then we've got to get a Christmas tree. So we haven't done our Christmas tree yet. I was always brought up that we could do our Christmas tree as soon as the Christmas pageant happens here in Adelaide, and that was last weekend. So a lot of people are starting to put their tree up. However, me and my husband have agreed this year that we're going to get a real tree, which we've never done before. My husband's from Canada, and growing up over there, I think it was a lot more commonplace to have real trees than it is here in Australia. And so he grew up with real trees every year, and so it's a real nostalgic thing for him. That smell of pine and things like that is a real a big Christmas thing for him. So we're going to bite the bullet and buy a real Christmas tree, which will be really interesting. So we should have that around the next podcast, because you can't get them at the Christmas farm until about after the 24th of November, and obviously you don't want to get it too early or your Christmas tree will die before Christmas. So we'll probably get that. Actually, I probably won't have it by next podcast after, because I probably will get it in 2 weeks over the weekend and set it up. So, and then I need to decide what theme I want, because we've had the same Christmas decorations for 4 years plus. So I think we need to do, if we're going to get a new tree, we're going to do an overhaul of our decorations. So I don't know. We've always done gold, red and green for the last few years. Not a big fan of the crazy colours, you know, people that do like purple and teal. I like the more classic look. So I don't know, I'm thinking maybe white and gold possibly this year for my colours, which I think will look really nice on a nice big green real tree. We'll see. And I'm going to have to deck my yarn wall out as well with some tinsel and things like that. I think need to make this atrocity look at least a little bit more pleasant to the eye, being in the middle of my lounge room. I think that's about it for personal stuff. So that's going on in the next couple of weeks. So once again, thank you for joining me. I think it's been, I think we got through another full hour. I was a bit worried I was going to go way over time because I had a lot of things that I wanted to show you. I still haven't shown you that one. Maybe next week, only because I knew I had a lot of things I need to go through today and I wasn't going to have time. Because I know I've mentioned in previous podcasts that I will bring this thing down, and I know when I do, that means that I'm committing to working on it. So maybe I will do that next fortnight. Thank you so much for listening to me blabber on about what is going on in the Peach and Paige world and my world for another couple of weeks. Excuse me. By all means, if you do have any questions or if there is anything that you want me to discuss in my podcast, please ask me down below. I really want to hear from people and be able to give you the content that you want. As mentioning before, I am looking at doing some other types of videos and tutorials and things like that. So if there is anything that you want me to show you or suggestions you have for a video that you would like me to do, once again, pop it down below. If you have any suggestions for Christmas decorations, pop it down below. And like and subscribe, and I will see you all in another couple of weeks. Thank you. Bye.